Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Talking Grit is brought to you by the Monroe County Reporters, Monroe's top news source for police, fire, and community events.
Post 3, Depot Street. Truck boy intercept.
Follow them on Facebook, and for $2.99 a month, you can become a subscriber and get the news you crave even faster.
Welcome back to Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is Jacob Litton. First, I want to apologize for missing our scheduled podcast on Monday. Sicknesses and schedules definitely got in the way. We have to postpone our planned podcast, which was the Fantasy Play Draft. And we're going to be recording that next Monday night, so it'll be out Tuesday morning.
Just say next week.
Huh?
You're putting pressure on us. You're putting pressure on us by telling them the day.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully everything works out with all four of us. Getting four people together at once is sometimes difficult during this time of year. Miko and Morgan will both be joining us. That's enough about next week's show. Let's talk about this week's show. First, I'll start off with Jacob. How you been?
I'm all right, man. It's the downtime of the season, though. It's far enough away. The scouting combine's coming up. We got that to look forward to, but it's far enough away from the draft and free agency starting and everything. It's just the downtime.
I know. It hasn't helped that both basketball and hockey have been on their break. At least hockey's had this Four Nations tournament, which has been pretty fun to watch. But I'm ready to get back to Detroit sports. Pistons game tomorrow night, so that'll be fun.
Absolutely. Good Detroit sports, too. I mean, I
know.
We're playing well.
It wasn't too long ago, Jacob, that none of our teams were worth a darn, and now there's a possibility that all four of them could make the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't remember what year it was, but it could have been when we were 0-16, but there was one year where they combined all the records or all the winning percentages from all the cities that have the four major teams, and we were the worst by a long shot.
Yeah, I know.
Just rubbing it in.
It just seemed like for a while then even Michigan football was not doing good, and it was just a downtime in sports. And for me as a huge sports fan, it was tough to stomach. And now we've gone on a streak of beating Ohio State over and over again. When Red Wings starting to play well, especially since the coaching change, and Pistons have been surprisingly well. And then that's not to mention the Tigers 0.1% playoff chance run that they had at the end of the year that was crazy exciting. And of course, the Lions that we follow so much that been playing really well for the better part of 2.5 years.
I wonder how many of the listeners are just Detroit sports fans, or how many, because we had a couple people on there, they like the Lions, but they may not like the Tigers, or they don't roll with the Pistons. Or Dusty from Green Bay, he's a Packers fan, but he actually followed the Tigers. So
yeah, I just can't, I have a hard time relating to that. You and I are both just Michigan, Detroit fans, and fans that cherry pick, or I don't want to say cherry pick, but just have fans from
cherry pick. Those are fighting words.
They are, I guess, the cherry picking. I'm like a lot of my son's friends are all 49ers and Chiefs fans. I think that maybe some of those people, that's when they started loving the sport. That was a good team, so they followed them. I guess that's probably how that happened, or maybe it's a parent likes one or the other. But for me, I just grew up, my parents just loved Detroit teams, and that was ingrained in me. And bad you can't get your kids to follow suit, man.
I know. My parents were not into sports. They didn't watch sports. I had to do this on my own. I had to develop this heartbreak on my own. Nobody led me to this.
So how did you get into sports if your parents weren't into it? Was it friends or other family members, or?
Honestly, the first, probably they started me in T-ball because it was something to do. And I was just always, I love sports. I was always really good at sports. And it was just one of those things. This is what I relate to the most. So now life, revolves around sports.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
No, it's like the first reality TV, really, when you think about it. You got all these storylines, and you're playing, it's real stuff and real people and real players, and just, it's fun. I can't imagine my life without sports. And for a while, I didn't think that my boys were going to be into sports, but they totally are. And I'm living my dream as a sports dad.
It's a good feeling to have them be into sports, and JJ will like see news stories and sports things, and he'll share updates and stuff. Just unfortunately for me, I have to deal with JJ liking the Dolphins and the Heat and teams that are not mine. At least everybody likes all the same teams in your house.
That's right. I come home with, Dad, did you know this? Dad, did you know that? And then after I get through the news of the day or whatever they've learned since they've gotten home from school, then I learn about new Madden ratings and stuff that was not majorly important in my life, but it's fun nonetheless to just talk any sort of sports with my kids. So I don't take that for granted at all.
For sure.
All right, let's get on talking about the Lions. This week, the Lions announced their full coaching staff. You and I are not going to go over this extensive list. We're going to just kind of hit the highlights. But before we get all started on that, Dan Miller interviewed the new OC and the new DC. You and I both watched those interviews. I'm going to start with you. We'll start with John Morton. Did you have any impressions from the interview, or what caught your eye or your ear from that interview with Dan Miller?
I mean, obviously, with any coach, you expect them to talk about the team and talk about what they hope to bring to the team and everything. But in this case, what I caught from that was just he's from Michigan, right? His family's from Michigan. He grew up rooting for the Lions. His family's all still here. He was here just a few short years ago. It really means more to him. It's really in there. He knows what it's about. You don't have to, some of these guys, you have to learn about what Detroit's about. You have to learn about what things are like here, what the people are like here. And it was cool hearing him talk about that. He's from here and he's all in. And I like that.
I liked it. I looked it up. He went to Western Michigan University. I actually went to Western Michigan University for a while. And yeah, just that stuck out to me too, like the Michigan connection. He knows what it would mean to the city, just like Aiden Hutchinson knows that, like just being from this area, having to live through all that. And hopefully he's going to provide the key things that I took from it, other than the Michigan connection, was that it starts with JG. It starts with Jared Goff, he said. And he's already got a prior relationship with Jared Goff. The cool thing about this is Morton's already developed relationships with these players. I mean, he is a new OC coming in, but he's been a part of this. He was right from the get-go when Ben Johnson got OC. He saw it being built from the ground up. He's not in here. He said, it's not broken. I'm not in here to fix anything. I'm in here to enhance things, to make it better. And he can make it better. I'm not saying that Ben Johnson was a bad coach or anything like that. Loved him here. But I think he could take it a step further, or they could do different things. If anyone had a beat on what Ben Johnson was going to do, that's going to change a little bit, because play calling is going to change a little bit with Morton back there. And he did confirm John Morton is calling the plays, because there was talk about whether Dan Campbell was going to call the plays. Morton confirmed that he is calling the plays.
Yeah, he seemed excited about that, putting that out there too. He is going to be the one calling the plays. I think he actually reflected on the last time that he did that for the Jets and how different the situation is here with us being established like that already. All the pieces are already in place. I mean, really, when you think about that, that's just the best situation for a coach to come into. You don't really have to. Changes are not 100% necessary. You don't have drastic things that you need to fix right now before you can get on the field.
Yeah. The thing is, it's just the pressure, right? He's got to live up to this juggernaut of an offense, and there probably will be a little bit of growing pains, I feel, but hopefully they can work a lot of that kink out in the offseason as opposed to in the season. You mentioned, I want to go back to something you just mentioned about he was an OC. So if you look back at his record as an OC, maybe it's not impressive. But when I mentioned who his quarterback was, it was Josh McCown. His running backs were a guy that you probably never heard of, Billy Power. His two main wide receivers were Powell. Is it Powell? Okay, maybe
Bilal Powell.
Yeah, and Jermaine Kearse.
I've never heard of Bilal Power because he doesn't exist.
He doesn't exist. Right.
Jason's just making up names.
I know. I just wanted the last name to be Power. That would be awesome.
That is cool.
Just to go on a huge tangent here, there was a Simpsons episode where Homer changed his name to Max Power, and that'd be a great name to have. But anyways, the two wide receivers were Jermaine Kearse and Robbie Chosen. So not murderer's row of offensive talent there. He's going to have much better talent coming here to Detroit.
Definitely. I mean, night and day when you look at those situations.
Yes, exactly. All right. Now, of my opinion, this is the more interesting interview of the two. I think Kelvin Shepherd is an amazing talker. I want to run through a wall for him already. He's just that kind of person. So what hit you about the Kelvin Shepherd interview, our new defensive coordinator interview with Dan Miller?
The first was just like the loyalty that he's already showing to the Lions and to Dan Campbell, and just him talking about, he was open about having other opportunities elsewhere and him wanting to stay here, him wanting to ride this one out. And he's earned it, right? He's earned this shot. It's awesome that he was able to stay here and get the chance to be here. I think he made a joke like, we'll just be co-head coaches with Dan Campbell once that time comes. No, yeah, but that's just what I got out of it, is the loyalty and everything. We already know what Shep's about, but what were your first thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just like mesmerized when he talks. I just listen to it. He is so inspiring. As a player, he has the Detroit roots, just Morton did. Shep's been here as a player. He knows what this town's about. He's been here for the last few years coaching. He definitely knows. He's not going to come in here and just change everything. He's just going to, again, make it grow, make it his own. He mentioned Terrion Arnold's name twice in that interview that you caught. He mentioned it early on, and then when Dan Miller asked him about players that they could make a big jump, Terrion Arnold was the first name out of his mouth. So I'm excited by that. I think he sees a potential there. He also mentioned Brian Branch as having potential to grow. What did you think about that? That stuck out to me.
I mean, if the ceiling gets any higher, that already is one of the best draft picks we've gotten for him.
Yes. What's funny is that he mentioned, I don't know if you caught it, but he mentioned BB's growth from the neck up, meaning his football knowledge. He has tons of instinct. He's obviously a great athlete. But if Kelvin Shepherd thinks that there's more room to grow and how he can change the game, I'd love to see it. If he makes another big jump, that would be great.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the loyalty. He mentioned AG and how AG basically prepared him for this job, that AG pushed him out and he would do more talks with the team and stuff that he said other defensive coordinators, they want all their time with the players and the position coaches are kind of sidelined. AG didn't do that. He pushed those guys out there. And I think that's going to make Kelvin Shepherd more prepared for this job.
Yes. I mean, shouts out to AG for that too. He seemed like he just did everything the right way.
Yeah. I'm gonna quiz you. What did Kelvin Shepherd say was non-negotiable in his defense? Do you remember what the term was that he used?
I do not remember that.
Relentless effort, which I loved. I loved hearing that. And he said that's non-negotiable. And
I'm for it.
I'm all for that. And I also, the other thing that I love, he talked about the toughness in the trenches, and he said he tells a team you have to earn the right to rush the passer. And what he means by that is that you have to stop him on first and second down so that you could get him in that passing situation so that you could just pin your ears back and go after the quarterback. And I like that. I mean, it's not much different with AG or what Dan Campbell has preached before. Stop the run and then put them in an obvious passing situation. And then you better your chance if you eliminate 50% of the plays that they can call.
That's the name of the game, right?
Yep. So I'm excited. I'm really glad that they hired Shep for this position. We'll see how it all turns out. I'm sure there'll be some growing pains with both of them, but I'm happy to have Shep on for our defensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's to be expected, obviously. The growing pains. Not everything's going to click right away. Not everything's going to work right away. We still have a really good roster to build around and to do these things with, but people have to be patient, too.
Yes.
Give up a bunch of yards or some big plays or something like that. Let's not call for Shep's head. Or it's just inevitable that people are going to do that.
And then also sometimes it's just a player missing a play. It's not necessarily the defensive coordinator. So it for us is we have to watch. You have to watch a lot of tape, and you have to see a lot to make the right call on that, and then just listen to what the coaches say afterwards, because a lot of times it is on a player being out of position. I don't know about you, Jacob, but I'm watching the Four Nations thing right now, and USA just scored a goal. We're up 2-1. So good update. Anyways, there's been, along with those two big changes, the OC and the DC, there was some other changes throughout the lineup. We're not going to go through everything. Scotty Montgomery now is going to be the wide receivers coach. which I kind of curious how that's going to be with Jamo, because Scotty Montgomery seems to be a down to business guy. So that'll be just another mentor voice for Jamo. So I'm happy about that. But the guy that I think both you and I want to talk about is Tashard Choice, the new running backs coach. What did you want to talk about with him?
I mean, just he has NFL experience, obviously. So this is another former player that we're bringing in here. But he also has a already established relationship with Jahmyr Gibbs. He was coaching at Georgia Tech when Jahmyr Gibbs was in there. He also coached at Texas, so he saw Bijan Robinson. So he's had some good running backs underneath him already. And I think we both feel the same way about having the former players in here that are able to coach as well. I think that's just huge. So I really like that move there.
Yeah, I like that move too. He's also, Tashard Choice is like best friends with Kelvin Shepard. And Kelvin Shepard said in his interview that he told Tashard Choice, just wait till you get in here. This is an environment unlike you've ever seen. Just the collaborative effort, I think he's talking about with the Lions organization. So it sounds like we got some good talent there. And I like you mentioned, the experience with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm sure they picked Jahmyr Gibbs' brain about it. I think did on the Amon Ra podcast, or was it I don't know if it was Amon Ra, or it was another podcast. Gibbs talked about that Tashard Choice was like a reason why he went to Georgia Tech, just to work under him.
That could have been on there, the St. Brown podcast. I did not hear that though.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what podcast, but I know that he had talked about working together. So
I mean, if he's able to get the best out of Gibbs and take him to another level too, I mean, my God.
I know. Yeah, if Gibbs goes to another level, then
that's almost
you're
unfair.
It is, yeah, for other teams, but totally for us. Fraley, they added run game coordinator to his title. That was probably mostly to keep him here. He was interviewing outside. Just quickly, Bruce Gradkowski, former Toledo quarterback, is now offensive assistant. He lives pretty close to us, so I'm hoping I can run into him at some point. That would be super cool.
Jason's just going to wait outside his house.
Exactly.
Bruce.
Bruce. Yeah. The other guy that we've talked about previously is Casey Rogers. And the more I read about this guy, I am really excited to have him as our defensive line coach. We've had a lot of defensive line coaches in here. Aleem McNeil's had a different one pretty much every year, but last year's was really good. And Casey Rogers seems to be another guy that we've got to step in there. And it was funny. Casey Rogers was defensive coordinator when John Morton was offensive coordinator with the Jets.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's some familiarity there too.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, is Casey also run game coordinator? Is that like a co-thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so both Hank Fraley and Casey Rogers have run game coordinators. Now, I don't know if one is, I assume Casey's is more on the defensive side, whereas Hank's on the offensive side, but so I don't know how that's going to be worked out. Maybe someone will ask that question. I think at the combine coming up, the coordinators may be there, so they might be able to beat writers might be able to get some information from them on that.
Yeah.
Not much has changed on here. I will say that Deshae Townsend, our passing coordinator, defensive backs coach, he interviewed outside for some other coordinator positions, but ended up staying back. So that's good that we kept him. We had our defensive back play was much better last year. I think that was a lot to do with better talent back there, but obviously we kept him. We keep changing our defensive backs coach. Seems like we're changing that every year too. So this will get some continuity.
A little bit of continuity. Real quick, just about back to Bruce Gradkowski, because he also has NFL experience. He's also a former player. They got Tuiasa Sopo was an offensive assistant too, and he is another former quarterback. So we're definitely sticking with the whole hiring former players thing a lot too.
Yep. Yeah.
Which we've had a lot of success with.
We have. And I don't think the Lions just hire, oh, you're a former player, you can come coach with us.
No.
They're hiring former players that are good coaches. And I think the former player stuff I think the players just have an easier time following them, or the coaches can relate with the players because they've been in that spot before.
Absolutely. You can't have any player Just because you're a good player, just because you played doesn't make you a good coach. But, there are plenty of good coaches who have that experience, and I think that helps.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, let's not recreate the wheel here. We've got a good thing going. Just keep going with it. All right. Anything on the outside the coaches that you wanted to talk about?
No, I really like David Shaw also. Passing game coordinator. He's the one that was from Stanford for a while. Just more knowledge, more coach. I mean, we got a pretty solid coaching staff. Obviously, we have a lot of big names that we had to replace, but I'm okay with it. I feel really good about it going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like losing what we had. I really liked AG, obviously like Ben Johnson, but I think that I feel like these guys are prepared to take over these roles that they've inherited. And like you said before, they're getting talented rosters. It's not like they're new coaches coming in and they got to fix everything. They just need to keep the machine rolling.
Yeah, there's nothing you don't have to figure out how it works. We know how it works. Play with it, do what you want with it.
Yeah, and we still have Dan Campbell, the ringleader, and he will get everybody in line and he'll have a good plan and we'll keep it going. All right. Next thing I want to talk about real quickly, NFL increased the salary cap. They announced that this week. It's going up by at least $22 million. There's still some budget numbers to figure out, so it could go up like another $4 million beyond that. But $22 million would already be a record. So it's going to go up like a 1-year record. Last year, it's going to break last year's record. As of right now, different sites are projecting different amount of cap space for the Lions. I usually look at Spot Track, and they calculate the Lions will have $48.5 million in cap space next year, which is a pretty good spot. It's in the upper half of the league, like around 11. A lot of things could change between now and then. We could cut some players, whatever, contracts, redo some contracts to free up money. But it's nice to be, instead of in the Saints or the Browns where they're like $30 million over the cap and they got to shed everything or redo contracts to get under that. We're going to be a pretty good job for flexibility.
This is where you want to be.
You have to be like under the cap when the league year starts, which is March 12th, I believe. You got to have all that stuff done in the next few weeks here, whereas the Lions don't have that. We're already under the cap, so you don't have that timeline.
It really makes you wonder, though, how teams get so far behind like that, and how many bad moves do you have to make and set yourself up for that disaster.
Yeah, I mean, we lived it. I mean, that whole Ndamukong Suh thing where we just kept redoing their contracts and we were redoing him and Stafford at the same time, and it basically priced us out.
Who was the GM then?
Was that Mayhew at that time? Or was
I think so, right?
Yeah. Yes. And then Ndamukong signed for a ridiculous contract, never lived up to it with the Dolphins. But that would have been a hard contract for anyone to live up to, especially linemen like what
Suh signed that contract tax-free in Florida, and then his level of play, his level of effort just fell off.
Yeah, he wasn't stopping anyone's heads or anything down there.
Yeah, he didn't have to.
No.
He was hanging out on the beach.
Yeah, he was. All right. So the reason why I bring up that NFL cap stuff, it kind of relates to the next two topics that we're going to talk about here this weekend. With the increased cap space, that was kind of predicted, but maybe not by this much. So it might give the Lions a little more room to re-sign some people or sign extensions. So a player that we might sign an extension with right now that just become eligible this year is Hutch. He released a new workout video. Let's start there. What did you think about how he looked when he was running?
I was excited when I saw the video. I saw him post it. I was like, okay, yes. And it wasn't a very long video. It was kind of just like him running sprints. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, man, there's no way he would have been able to play in the Super Bowl. That was the way. He was not moving fluid enough. I mean, shouts out to him for rehabbing the way that he did and being as far as he is right now. But yeah, that whole Super Bowl question where there was a chance, I don't. Based on that one video, I don't think so. If they would have let him play, they probably would have been taking a spot from somebody else, and he would have been very limited. He wouldn't have been able to play very many snaps or anything. I just don't see it being possible.
Yeah, I don't see it either. He looked very clunky running. I mean, he looked like an athlete that was injured coming back and that was straight line sprints that we saw. There was no cutting,
right.
For him to do what he needs to do. He would have had the effort. I know he would have had the effort if he'd been there, but just he would have been limited. And why would the Lions have risked him getting hurt for what he could have played, like 10 snaps at most. And that
Right.
would have been, like you said, you're taking a spot from someone else that could be a lot more productive than 35% Hutch or whatever percentage.
And possibly causing a setback affecting next season too from trying to rush him out there.
Yeah. And just for Hutch, why would he want to risk that? We're just about to talk to in line to sign a contract extension. He gets injured again. That could really affect. It could affect whether we even sign into an extension this year, because you'd want to see how he comes back from the injury. Yeah. So let's talk about it. When do you think that he's going to sign this 5th year? I assume this is going to happen, a 5th year contract extension. Do you think it's going to, first of all, I'll start there. Do you think it's going to happen?
It's absolutely 100% going to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah.
No, he's earned it already to this point. I don't think that you can really count this injury against him.
Yeah. Do you think it happens before the season? Do you think it's going to happen early in this season, or do you think it's going to happen before the season starts?
When they did the deal with Sewell, I think it was right around the draft time, or maybe right after the draft. I forget. It was definitely like around.
It was because Amon-Ra's was before the draft. Was Sewell's first?
So Sewell's was right after?
I'm not sure.
I would have to look that up, but they was around that time. So I think it's probably going to be handled the same way, right? Mm-hmm. You find out how much cap space you actually have left. We find out what we can do, how we tie in this 5th year with the contract, how we're going to play around with that. I mean, do you think there's any doubt that it's...
No, I think you're right about the timing of it. It might even be a little bit later. Just we might see how he was running. They may want to see just exactly where he's at. But I think it'll be before this season. We're definitely going to obviously pick up the 5th year option regardless, because that's due May 1st. So you have to announce whether you're going to pick up a 5th year option, which basically guarantees that 5th year at a certain salary level. And, that, and it's going to be at an acceptable salary for Hutch, regardless of whatever extension we sign. However, I see this going down. The Penei Sewell thing is right, because we picked up his contract extension, but they kind of rolled everything into his next contract, which really helped to stabilize the cap hit that Penei Sewell is going to have for next season and for a few other seasons, because the way they were able to run that contract, which I think that's what they're going to do with Hutch here.
I mean, I would be shocked if they just let it, like, let's just pick up his 5th year option. We'll let this roll out. I don't know. I mean, with the injury and everything, it wasn't a knee injury. It wasn't ligament damage or whatever. It was a broken bone. I just don't see them holding that against him or doing anything. Just get the deal done now, especially because let's say we wait. There's other people going to be signing contracts and stuff. I'm sure when you do sign Hutch, it's got to be the top dollar, top contract or near it. You're only hurting us by waiting an extended period of time, and then you get a couple more guys signed, and now all of a sudden you're on the hook for a couple more million every year.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head right there. That's what I was thinking. Follow the playbook of these past signings of Amon-Ra, Penei Sewell. Be the first, so that you're not paying that additional premium, and don't be the Cowboys, don't be the Bengals that just cost your guys millions of dollars because you're not signing that player.
Right.
You're doing everything. Don't expect Lions to do business that way. The only wild card in all of this is the injury, and the Lions will have all the information they need. He's working out at the facility, because that's where the running was, right at the practice. So they'll have all that information. It's not like he's working out off site somewhere else and they have to guess where he's at.
They're not just watching these same videos that we are.
Yeah, I'm sure that the Lions coaches or training staff is there, how he's progressing. And we all know that Hutch is going to work as hard as he can to get back for next season in prime shape. So that's not what I'm worried about with him.
Right now, his 5th year option, which I don't know if this is solid set yet, but the 5th year option for him would be $23.2 million, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the top edge rusher, in terms of average a year, is Nick Bosa at $34 million.
I mean, you're getting a deal. When you look at what Hutch, healthy last year, was on pace to break the sack record.
Yeah.
Was on pace to break the pressure created record. He was on pace for an all-time season before he got hurt last year. Whether he could keep up that pace, I don't know, because in that game, it was only 5 games, and one of those games was that Tampa Bay game where he had, 4.5 sacks. I mean, it would have been hard to keep up that pace, but regardless, he would have been on pace to at least lead the league in sacks. And that's probably would have garnered him Defensive Player of the Year. So that injury, I'm sure, cost him a little. It definitely cost him some money, but it may have just delayed it a little bit.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about the more interesting player, whether we take up the 5th-year option. Jamo taken in the same draft as Hutch. And same question. Do you think, first of all, do you think they're going to pick up their extension? Do you think they're going to pick up his 5th-year extension?
I'll go back and forth on this one. Jamo's 5th-year extension be $15 million right now. And I kind of feel like they might pick that up and let him play this one out. I would rather them work something out with him and do a contract, but really when you look at that $15 million, when you look at the comparable players, that's Cortland Sutton, that's Tyler Lockett, Jerry Jeudy. Those are the people making around that. That's how much you'd be saving off of that. So you got to figure if you're going to be signing to a contract, he's probably going to be asking at least 20, 25, right? And I don't know. I mean, it's just a tough call whether we pay him that.
Yeah, I think.
How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I definitely got to pick up the 5th-year option because you just mentioned the players that he'd be combined in salary level. Definitely worth that $15 million.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say bad luck follows him. It might be a maturity issue. There's a lot of things that have happened that would give me pause whether to commit a ton of money. I want to see him do it for another year under a new OC, under a new wide receivers coach. I want to see him do it one more year. I know that flies in the face of what we just said about Hutch's. Sign him early to get ahead of it, to save yourself some money. For me, Hutch is more of a for sure thing, whereas Jamo is not. And I'd rather pay extra later on to be pretty sure that he's going to turn out to be the player that we think he has the possibility of turning out to be.
That's the problem with Hutch is that regardless, I think that Hutch is going to be top paid or near the top paid. So if that number goes up, then his salary goes up. With Jamo, I think his salary probably hovers around the same thing this year, next year. I mean, he was top 20 in touchdowns. I think he was almost top 20 in receiving yards last year. But you're right. I think we just need to see more out of him because we don't know how much he's asking either. If he's asking for 25 or 30 million, like that's towards the top. Then you're talking top 10 money. Then you're getting closer to Amon-Ra, who's been more productive for longer. It's gonna be a tough decision that they have to make with him.
Yeah, I just don't. As of right now, I would not trust Jamo to go on any other team and be a number 1 wide receiver. I just don't think it works like that for him. He has questionable things about going up for 50-50 balls. And as he gets older and the speed maybe decrease, then his worth will go down a little bit, in my opinion. Whereas Amon-Ra doesn't have that issue. He'll play any sort of, he could play all 3 of those positions, slot, X, Z. He could play any of that and do well at it. So I don't really, I don't know if I want to commit all that money to Jamo. And we'll see what these plans have. What are we going to do in the next couple of years? Because if we do, if we do sign him to the 5th-year option, but don't pick up his extension, at what point do we get another wide receiver in here that can do similar things to Jamo, take the top off the defense? Because you're going to need a player like that on the offense. You need someone that could take the top off the defense.
Absolutely. Do we look at drafting his potential replacement or just extra help? Do we do that this year? I mean...
Right. Or is it like a Brad Holmes special where late in the draft, you just draft someone as going to be a 2-year project just to get him ready? I don't know. And also it just depends on Jamo. And I think this year with Scotty Montgomery will tell a lot, like his maturity level. It's already, Dan Campbell speaks about it happening, but he needs to also maintain that and keep growing for me to have confidence in him. I mean, he's a great player. I want him on his team. He had his best year last year, made some really tough catches. The hands thing is kind of gone away with me. What I want to see him develop is the contested catches. That's where I want to see some development next year. even if he's not going to catch it, there are times where he's just giving up on routes, it seems like, and the other teams are getting easy picks. So you think about the Commanders game where he kind of gave up on the route, and then that Vikings game where Goff kind of just threw up that ball, whether Jamo gave up on the route or anything, but if he keeps running and at least gets in the defender's face, makes it a tougher interception.
Rather than just stop or kind of give up. I mean, yeah, you're right. That wasn't a play where it was like there was another receiver behind him. He knew what that was. He just knew he was overshot and just kind of gave up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that I think I want to see some more growth for him next year. And I'm sure the coaches are on there talking about that. This deals with Jamo, but the NFL announced this week that he won't face discipline for the gun incident. So we won't have that hanging over where he might miss a few games at the beginning of the year. I didn't think that he was going to, I hadn't even really thought about this in a long time, that gun.
Yeah, I forgot that it happened until I saw the story that he wasn't going to face discipline. Yeah. So yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's nice. So hopefully there's no other surprises that come up along the way.
Exactly. He just we really need him to have a clean off season and clean training camp and injury free, knock on wood, no legal trouble, no suspensions, none
of that. Yeah. Let's get to work and just eat your McFlurries or whatever the heck he eats.
Yeah. Why don't you spend more time on the jugs machine with Amon-Ra and just lay low?
Yeah, or work with Calvin about going up and high pointing the ball, and that's just what I want to see him working. What's better than having the best player ever to do it, high point a ball like that? Obviously, Calvin's a freak of nature, but I'm sure he could teach Jamo a thing or two.
Yeah, I just don't think Jamo has enough weight on him to really like box out or do that kind of.
No, but he just needs to just get in there and do the contested catches. He can't come. Yeah, he won't be able to box out or push people around. That's just that's not his game.
That comes with the contested catches too, though, is being big body and being able to create separation right there at the end. And his separation is by how fast he is.
Yeah, no, that's his best weapon, and that's not going away. He just needs to further his game. All right. NFL Combine starts next Monday. First of all, do you watch it, Jacob? Are you watching all the
event? Do. I definitely don't die hard watch from beginning to end, but I'm following updates as it's happening. I look out for the Michigan players, absolutely, but then just try to look at the top stories, try to see some of the lower level players that I have my eye on, trying to see what they're about. I like hearing about the interviews and stuff like that. It's funny because they always have rumors about how poorly people interview or this or that. There's so much smoke screen. There's so much going on during the combine that you can't even tell how much is true. Yeah. But I like it because it doesn't usually affect the Lions, but I like how there's always one or two players that do really well at the 40-yard dash, the bench, like one of those drills. There's somebody that does really good, and then all of a sudden they go from like late first, second round pick to like top 10. Mm-hmm. And then people are so shocked when these guys are busts. Like, what do you...
I know. You've spent 3 or 4 years watching a player, what they could do on the field, and then all of a sudden they bust your expectations on the bench press, and suddenly that's going to be the best player. Yeah. I mean, that's what Walker from Jacksonville just kept moving up the board and moved past Hutch, just ignoring what you just saw from Hutch and the relentless effort, as Kelvin Shepard had said, and you just forget all that and said, oh, this guy is a demon or whatever. I'd rather trust the tape. So you wrote a question, I think, in here. Does the 40-yard dash or bench press matter to you? And I think that's what you kind of meant by that. I mean, that's what you're wondering, whether I really...
First, do you look at those numbers? Are you intrigued by those numbers? And then do they matter to you?
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, I mean, it's a competition. So yeah, I like to see who's super fast, and watching some, especially when I wish Jamo could have ran that 40 that year, because he said he would have broke the record. I like seeing that. I love seeing extreme speed, but also I am not the Oakland Raiders and be like, oh, fastest receiver, that's who we got to draft, because there's so many other things on there. And I think Brad Holmes has talked about it. They use the GPS data, the in-game speed, as more of a barometer than 40-yard dash. I think that is the 40-yard dash basically is just a confirmation for them of a player's speed.
But, it is straightaway speed, so...
Mm-hmm. It's straight line speed with no pads or anything on, and no one in your face. So not as relevant to me. Bench press, I mean, yes, it's going to show overall strength, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have good football instincts or know how to use your strength properly to get proper leverage, proper technique. That's more important than overall bench press. But say you had two players graded similarly and they had, a more impressive bench press, you might be able to break a tie that way.
Do you think they really do that, though? I mean, I know that it's a possibility, but do you think there are teams that really sit down, you know what, we're tossed up between player A and player B, but player A did 30 reps on the bench press, player B did 18 reps. Do you think that those conversations actually happen like that?
I think conversations like that actually happen, but I don't think that's a reliable way you should be drafting. But I think everything that they see at the combine is a confirmation of what they saw on the tape. And also, it just matters, is this player prepared? Did they take this seriously? I'm sure all that goes into it. But I think for the Lions, the biggest thing that happens in this combine is the interviews. I really think that's the interviews, which we don't have access to and we didn't even see any from last year, but the previous year when they would do the Inside the Den series, we could see some of those interviews, and those were very interesting. And I think that's where the Lions find out what a player's made of and whether they're going to gel. I really think that's the most important thing. And again, that's not on the field. We don't see that.
I really like seeing those as well. I don't think you didn't end up watching the Hard Knocks, the offseason one of the Giants, did you?
No, I did not watch.
So it showed them when their interview process, and it showed some of the questions they asked, and it showed them interview the different quarterbacks and everything. Okay. You would like that, so you should watch that. But yeah, I like that insight too.
I have Max this year, and I did not have that last year. So I don't know who's going to be the offseason one this year, but I will.
After how bad the Giants looked, I would be surprised if anybody's jumping at the chance to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Giants, so they did that to themselves. Any position groups that you're looking at checking out?
Obviously, you like to see the edge defenders just to see what they have, because I think that's the top position of need for us. Offensive linemen are in the combine, but that's one of those things we just talked about. Yeah, I mean, somebody's going to bench 35, 40 reps or something like that, but it holds no weight for me whatsoever. So it's not really interesting to see the offensive linemen. It's more about seeing the skill players, and I like seeing the edge rushers.
Yep.
Wide receiver is an interesting one for me this year, but I think most of the ones that are going to be high-profile wide receiver names are people going in the first round or two, and that's not, if we're going to be drafting a receiver, it would be later in the draft.
Yeah, I don't expect us to be drafting anyone towards the top half of the draft for a wide receiver. Although Lions do crazy things.
The right guys there, they fall in love with, maybe, but
they will. But yeah, I don't see that happening. I want to say it's going to be offensive line and defensive line. Who knows? We do need some secondary help, corner, depending on who we bring back in free agency. So we have a while to think about that, because free agency might dictate who we're going to target in the draft. But
right.
It'll be interesting to get what the beat writers have to say, and I'm more interested in getting some of the coaching interview. And I know Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell will do some interviews. We haven't heard from them in a while, so I do like that. And Rod Wood always says something about the state of the Lions. Maybe we'll get some interesting things that'll happen at Ford Field this year. We might find out some information, so we'll see. Football talk is good talk, so that'll.
At the very least, yeah, that means the season's getting closer.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about Scouting Combine or anything coming up?
No.
All right. You saw something on TikTok. So you to introduce that, and we'll play this little game.
Yeah, so I saw a TikTok video. Gave me an idea to do this for you. But the TikTok video, whatever TikTok profile was, I guess they do this for NFL teams. They will just show 15 random players from a team. It's just a picture. There's no description. It's just a picture for maybe 3-4 seconds, and you have to try to guess that player. And there were 15 Detroit Lions they went through. I got 13 out of 15, and I was mad that I missed the 2 because there were people I should have known or names I should have got. I clicked the comment section, and then I saw people were mad at the original, at the post, for the guy they said he was listing obscure Lions or people no one's heard of before or old players that like nobody that follows the Lions now would know. And I was shocked by that because I knew almost all of them. So obviously we're not going to be showing pictures here, but I do have, it's those exact same players that I have on here. I just have something about the draft, what number they wore, and then an interesting fact about them, and I want you to guess what player it is.
All right.
And I've only got 5 or 6 on here, just as something fun to do. And then I'll tell you the other players that were on the list. I'll tell you which one I got wrong. But
okay.
So this first one is just an example. He wasn't on the list, but you only get one guess. I'll tell you the 3 things. You get one guess.
Okay, good.
All right. Holds the Lions record for most passing yards by a rookie. Wore number 3. Traded from the team in 2006.
Drew Stanton. I don't know.
Joey Harrington.
Oh, Joey Harrington. He holds the record for...
Yeah.
Oh, my
I think
God.
Stafford came within 100 yards or 200 yards or something like that, but Stafford played in 6 less games.
Yeah.
So that's how it's going to go. Now you see, that was just my example one.
Okay.
So these next ones were players that were actually on that list. All right, first one. First round pick in 2009. Wore numbers 84 and 87. Scored the game-winning touchdown against the Browns in the Stafford shoulder injury game.
Okay. Brandon Pettigrew.
Yep.
All right.
Next one. Third round pick in 2008. Wore number 92. And set the Super Bowl record for fastest score. I believe the year that he left.
What? Hold on. Repeat that. You said...
So he wore number 92. So I'll tell you, defense. Third round pick in 2008. And he set the Super Bowl record. The fastest scoring play in the Super Bowl history.
Oh, okay. Oh, man. A former Lions set the record. I'm not used to hearing Lions in the Super Bowl in the same.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised that this was on there, too.
Yeah, I don't know. Who is it?
So this was Cliff Averill.
Oh.
So Cliff Averill went to the Seahawks, and on the first play of the game, it was like that bad snap.
Yeah.
And they had to chase it down, and Cliff Averill got the tackled him in the end zone.
Oh, well, that was that against Peyton Manning? Was that?
Yes.
The bad snap right at the beginning. Okay, that makes sense.
It was like the first play of the game. I think I said it was like 12 seconds.
I didn't realize that Cliff Averill got that touchdown.
Was the one, yeah. It wasn't a touchdown, it was a safety. So
safety. Oh,
you were thinking touchdown, and that's what confused you.
Yeah,
that's okay.
No, I gotcha.
This would be much easier for you if you saw the pictures. I know that, but this is just the only way we have to do this.
No, we're good.
Next one. So wasn't drafted with us, but signed with the Lions in 2013. Wore number 27, and he led the league in interceptions in 2014. With the Lions.
Glover Quinn?
You got it.
All
right, 2 more. First round pick in 2010. Wore number 44. Scored the second longest rushing touchdown in Lions history of 88 yards.
Is it Java Best?
Yep, that's it.
Yep. Couldn't think
I
of the
could
last
see you were right there. It took a minute.
I could not think of the last. I almost said Bell, and I was like, no, that's not right. It's Best. Yeah, Java Best.
Yeah.
That was when he scored that touchdown. Was that the Bears game? Was when he got the longest?
I don't
one?
have that in front of me. I don't remember when it was.
I just remember him scoring in that game. That was that Monday night game with the Bears. We started out like crazy, and yeah. Okay. All right, that was a little tangent. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no. We're bringing up memories.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Undrafted free agent that signed with the Lions in 2011. He primarily wore number 35, and he worked as a security guard for the Lions training camp while he was a student at Wayne State.
Oh, Joyke Bell.
Yeah. You said Bell the last time. I was like, oh, man, it's fresh on his mind. He's going to get it now.
It is. Yeah, that's hilarious. All right, that's fun.
So those were just the ones that I did that for. But the other players on that list that the pictures were up, Kevin Smith, Louis Delmas, Nate Burleson, Nick Fairley, Sean Hill, Sean Rogers, Stephen Tulloch, Tahir Whitehead, John Kitna.
Yeah, none of those are obscure Lions.
So I was shocked. I was shocked that there were people commenting on there about like how obscure, and they were like almost mad. Somebody was like, I'm a Lions fan. I only got 3 of these. Like, how? A Lions fan this year? I don't understand.
Yeah, maybe one of the new Lions fans since we've been winning the last couple of years. And yeah, maybe that was it.
The ones I got wrong. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, go ahead.
Oh, the ones I got wrong. Kevin Smith, when I saw the picture, I said Kevin Jones. I was like, okay, that's Kevin Jones. And it was Kevin Smith. I got the name wrong. And then the other one, Tahir Whitehead, they showed the picture of him, and I did not recognize him. Nothing came to me at all.
Yeah. You probably blocked him out because of his poor linebacker play. You just blocked him out. Yeah. So I knew you were going to do this because we talked about it. When I was looking at the salary cap stuff, I found 2 salary cap facts that I wanted to quiz you on.
Okay.
So this will be a little different, but
salary cap things.
Yeah, just see it. They're just funny things. I don't know if you're going to get these or not, but they're more interesting than anything. So we'll see. This Lion will have a $23.3 million cap hit for the Lions next year. It's actually number 2 behind Jared Goff.
At $23 million?
$23.3 million cap hit.
Oh, God.
It's going to shock you. I don't think.
Is that Panay?
No, it is Taylor Decker. So when they redid his deal, they front loaded this. Panay is way down the list. His cap hit's only like $9.8 million because of how they
I like that.
Everything. Yep. So Taylor Decker, $23.3 million. So it's just how they've structured these deals.
But if there's $9 million right now, how high is Panay's school is towards the end of this contract?
Yeah, I looked at it. Yeah, there is. Remember what they did with Panay is that they rolled this in with his 4th-year deal, and so like they spread his signing bonus over 6 years. So they really did a smart deal, and I think that's what they're going to do with Hutch. But anyways, my next one, this is my last one I have for you. This former Lion will count $6.5 million against the cap this year. Former Lion.
For us, you mean, or just
for Lion? So he will count $6.5 million. So he's basically dead cap money for the Lions this year.
I don't remember anybody that we traded. Was it Sutton?
It is Sutton. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Number 1 right now is Carlton Davis. He's because they restructured his deal last year. He's got a $9.5 million cap hit, dead money. Yeah. Cameron Sutton's still costing $6.5 million now.
Can't that be voided? Or we still?
Yeah, we're still in conflict about getting some money back, so that may be lowered, and we may be able to get some additional cap money. We talked about in this podcast last summer when Lions are still filing for that. It's still takes forever, and I don't know why. Of course. It takes forever. So yeah, so we'll get back. I think later on this summer we'll get back and do the Honolulu Blitz and have questions like this. But
it was fun doing that again.
Yeah, definitely. Put you on the hot seat. But yeah, I wasn't planning on doing anything with you because I thought we'd just do those questions for me. But when I saw those cap numbers, I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that Taylor Decker one really surprised me.
Yeah, I did not see that.
Yeah. All right, man. Anything right now? I think it's 2-2 going to the 3rd period for this Canada USA.
Couple more minutes before they start.
Yeah.
I didn't see who scored for Canada.
I didn't. I saw them celebrating, and yeah, I wanted to throw something, but we're in this podcast. I want to encourage everybody that's listening next on Tuesday when we release the fantasy play draft. It'll be a great way of us looking back at the season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm curious how it's all going to work out, and hopefully I didn't jinx it by talking about it too much today. Hopefully we get everybody healthy and we can do this. All right, Jacob, I think we got another podcast in the books here. We always think, how are we going to talk? And then we end up talking for an hour, which is, it's always fun talking Lions, talking sports.
It's not hard to talk football.
No, it is not. It's not even like that hard to even come up with these topics. So yeah, hopefully we have a lot to talk about before we know it. Free agency is going to be here. That's 3 weeks away, which is crazy because then there'll be a lot to talk about for a while, just not only with the Lions, but the NFL, who we lost, who we've gained, hopefully. And yeah, there'll be plenty to talk about then. And then right behind that would be draft talk.
Can't wait.
Yep. All right. For Jacob, I'm Jason. Let's go Lions.